Danke. Normalerweise klatsche ich, aber ich kann ja aktuell nicht klatschen. Okay, also
English.
The fact that we usually all
I was
speak
gonna
German
say,
with each other.
it's weird to speak English with Niklas too much.
Yeah, it kind of like puts my brain in the German mode.
Did you get that? I'm so confused.
Also ich verstehe nur Bahnhof. You only understand train station? It's all Greek to me.
Understanding Train Station. Living between cultures with Josh and Feli.
Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome to episode number 3.
It's been a bit of a struggle so far, so hopefully...
Well, I wouldn't say struggle.
Yeah, today's been a little tricky. We've had some technical difficulties.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the past 2 episodes. I was like,
No, hopefully. I mean, so far I've had a great time, and I hope that our listeners have enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to reintroduce ourselves, my name is Josh. I'm an American living in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've spent a decent amount of time in Germany, kind of on and off for the last couple years.
And you're also fluent in German.
And I speak German as well.
Yeah, which is kind of what makes you very special because you also hang out with a lot of Germans here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, probably the most German American you'll meet.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, you're a lot more German than I am with a lot of aspects. Like,
and who are you?
I'm Feli. I'm Felicia. Usually I go by Feli. And I am a German living in America. I also have a YouTube channel called where probably a lot of you guys know me from. And I'm originally from Munich, have been living in Cincinnati off and on since 2016. Originally came here for an exchange semester during college. And now I'm here with a green card.
I love that you always say you're here with a green card. Like everyone's like concerned that you're here illegally.
Well, like, no. Well, I guess I'm like kind of like saying that for all the people who know about the process, which we're also going to talk about a little bit today.
Exactly.
Because you can't just be here, like, as a German citizen, you can't just be in the US without a reason.
Yeah, we make it pretty hard on people.
So, like, my reason is I have a green card, so I can be here with whatever, which right now I'm self-employed. But usually it's always connected to, like, college or a certain job or, like, your company sent you over or something like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
But no, I just like that you always say, I'm here on a green card. I'm here on a green card. Don't worry, guys, I'm here on a green card.
I'm legal.
Well, maybe we should start off with some of the exciting news that's kind of going on in my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is relevant to the channel because kind of our concept is to talk about differences between Germany and the US, but mainly talking about living in different cultures. And like I said at the beginning, I'm an American living in America. So not quite as interesting as Feli's story, for example.
I wouldn't say so.
But I currently work for a German company, and as I've talked about on the podcast so far, I've been back and forth between the US and Germany, specifically Munich, quite a few times in the last few years. And I recently got an offer to go over and live in Munich and work in our German office for 2 years. So that's pretty
awesome.
Exciting.
Congratulations, first of all. I mean, I knew
you.
about it before, but yeah, so you're going to be there starting next year, so January 2021.
Still working out the start date with Corona. Everything's a little crazy and trying to figure out visas and all of that, which we're going to talk about some today.
I mean, it's perfect for a podcast, honestly.
Exactly. So for those of you who have been watching or are watching us right now on YouTube, which we have a YouTube channel as well called Understanding Train Station. You guys can follow along there if you want to see. We've talked about maybe putting a couple pictures in there too, just so you guys can see what we're talking about when we talk about like objects that are different in different countries, like in Germany versus
and that
the
are
US.
Like difficult to explain, that we can at least use the YouTube channel to visualize it a little bit.
Exactly. But you can see we actually have a guest here today, which is perfect. This is Niklas, one of our very good friends.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here with us. I mean, you're here quite a lot at my house, but...
I spent some Friday and Saturday nights here.
Thanks for being on our podcast. Niklas is also from Germany, so right now we're 2 Germans at the table and 1 American.
I'm outnumbered.
You're outnumbered.
The foreigners are taking over.
So you have to leave the country.
But a lot of people would also say that Niklas and I aren't from the same country because I'm from Bavaria.
True.
And he's from the north of Germany. So I guess let's just start with introducing yourself. So who are you and where are you from and why are you here in Cincinnati?
That's a big question. No, I'm Niklas, 25, just outside of Hamburg is where I was born. So it's a little village called Zed. Probably nobody knows that. So I always say, hey, I'm from Hamburg. Don't ask any further
Sounds
questions.
a lot cooler if you say that you're from Hamburg.
Yeah, I always have to tell them, there's more cows than actual people where I'm from. But no, I'm from Hamburg. Here since 3 years now. Spent some time in the US before on internships, but moved here in beginning of 2018 with my wife for a job. I am the CEO of our North American branch. We are a company, to keep it simple, we sell and buy minerals and chemicals. It's a commodity-based business.
So very fancy.
So for you, like it's that part of the story where your company sent you over here.
Yes, so I did my
German company.
internship, my trainee program with them in Germany for 3.5 years. And I was just finishing up and I said, hey, what do I want to do next? So I said, okay, I can study, I can do this, I can do that. And they said, hey, Niklas, why don't you move to the US? Our CEO there is about to retire. We're looking for someone new. And I was 21 at that time. I was like, what? Are you sure you mean me? And they're like, yeah, you might be an option. So I came here for 3 months, tried it out, had to take a flight back to Germany.
And you tried it in Cleveland, right?
I
was
tried it in
Cincinnati?
Cleveland. So
Yeah.
my first stop was actually St. Louis on a conference, which was a crazy experience because they just threw me in there. It's like a Hilton hotel at the St. Louis airport. It's not beautiful there. So I was like,
I've never been to St. Louis.
I mean, I arrived there. There were multiple things like, how does this toilet work? Why is there so much water in there?
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. We spent so much time talking about bathrooms.
Yeah,
in our last 2 episodes, and we didn't even talk about the amount of water in toilet bowls.
That's the one
True.
thing.
I think, well, we need to dedicate a whole
we'll get
episode
back
to
to that.
bathrooms, but yeah, true.
So that was the first problem. Then I was like, oh damn, the shower looks different. So I called my girlfriend and I was like, how does this shower turn out?
Same problem. That's
I was
so funny.
completely jet lagged.
Yeah.
I was like, first time in the US, not sure what's going on. And she was like, I don't know, just Google it. So I Googled that, figured that out, just fell in my bed, went to sleep. I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I just need to sleep.
At
Wake
least you
up,
could
where
Google
am
it
I?
because I literally told almost the same story in our first episode when we talked about first culture shocks, and I was 16 in the US and I couldn't get the shower to work, but I didn't have a smartphone at the time or a laptop, so I had to like go out in my towel and ask like my host family how to turn on the shower.
No, I did not run around in the
In your towel.
But no, figured everything out. Had a great time at the conference. I mean, some surprises there, like American breakfast, American cultures, but adapted quite good. Then spent the other 3 months in Cleveland, which is a nice city if you know people there. The first month was quite boring. Took a flight back to Germany, stayed there for about 2-3 months. Did another 3 months internship, and after that decided, hey, this is something I want to do, and my company said the same. So we started the whole visa moving process, and then I think I rented the apartment here in February of 2018.
And then you arrived here when?
Also,
Like
like I literally spent 2 days in Cincinnati before I moved here.
Oh wow.
I spent one day on a conference here, and one day choosing the apartment, and then that was like in beginning of
So
December.
you did view the apartment in person at least?
Yes, I did that, but then was 2 months in Germany, came back, and just moved in.
Crazy. And so part of the reason that you're here today is that, first of all, of course, like Josh and I want this podcast to be all about intercultural exchange and like life as an expat. And of course, like the main focus is going to be on us and therefore on Germany, German language, and America and English language. But we also want to bring in other perspectives from other people. And so Niklas, of course, has like a similar background, but also like at the same time, you have a different background story. And on top of that, you can talk a lot about the work life and the differences in work culture.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess before we hop into the questions that we really had prepared, I just was wondering, have you, from your childhood, did you ever think about living in the U.S., or was it really just something that just kind of happened because of work?
It was really for work. I never did an exchange here. Like Feli came here when she was 16. I stayed at home. I was never a guy who left this small village. I was like, this is my home. Yeah. I don't want to leave. Going to Hamburg or going to Spain is the most I wanted to do. Right. But then this amazing opportunity came along, and I remember they gave it to me, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. Went home, talked to my girlfriend, and she was like, yeah, why not? So I applied, and I think a week after I applied, I broke my foot. So I was out for 3 months. So I applied.
Wait, I'm not sure if I knew this part of the story.
Wait, so hold up. You broke your foot. Were you out for 3 months because of your foot?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that because that's so typical German.
And I was totally fine, like no pay cut, nothing. But I was out for 3 months, and like after a month and a half, my boss called. I was like, "Hey, can you come to Lübeck? That's the city where I worked. It's just at the Baltic Sea, for a second interview." I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I asked my brother to drive me there, and I literally got the job in the US the same day.
Wow.
So they was like, "Yeah, let's just talk to each other. Go out for 30 minutes." So I went out on crunches, talked to my colleagues. Said, "Yeah, you can come back," and then, "Yeah, you can start." And we just checked flights to the US. So I was like, "Okay."
So you got the whole offer and everything that day.
I got the internship there, and then and they said,
and
"Hey, if everything works out, you get the offer and everything."
Okay.
Sweet.
But I just really took the opportunity, and I was never the guy to do that. But I don't regret it at all. and I probably would do it again.
Yeah, that's how it happened for me too. Like maybe a little bit differently because I did it a little bit earlier, but I never planned on coming here either. I only did the exchange thing because a friend of mine wanted to do it.
I'm the exception to the rule. I always wanted to go check out Germany.
Yeah, you always did. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe we should just jump in with the kind of the broadest question that we had prepared. And what would you say is, I guess, the biggest difference between working in the US and working in Germany from your experience?
It's how much the private life is dragged into your work life in the US.
Oh, wow.
At least for my job, I'm in sales most of the time, also in management a bit, but most of it is sales. And if I do a sales call, there's a customer I know for, 2-3 weeks, and we start talking. It's like, not how's the weather or something. It's like, how's your family? How's your favorite football team?
Yeah.
Like, where do you go on vacation? What did you do on the weekend? It's really 80% of the time is so personal. Like, I know the name of the kids of my customer. I know where they live. I know where they're from. I mean, college is a big thing, of course. Sports is a big thing. But like, you would never ask the person in Germany, hey, how was your weekend and how's your wife? They was like, hey, that's my private life. Leave me alone.
Oh, that's so interesting,
true,
especially from the American perspective. I mean, I'm used to that. I don't work in sales per se. I talk with customers oftentimes defining technical stuff. But really, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that. But I mean, here in the US, you have to talk about personal things. Otherwise, you're not going to build a connection with someone.
Yeah, that's just a really big part of American culture in general, I would say. Like on my channel, I talked about the peach versus the coconut metaphor or analogy before. And Americans are just like a peach. They share a lot of their personal details about their lives.
Yeah.
I'm not like I don't want to say personal.
I think it's like
information.
I think what counts as personal in the U.S. is very different than what counts as personal in Germany.
So Americans share a lot of that very easily in the beginning, and like if you don't do it, it means something bad.
Yeah.
In Germany, it's the other way around. Like there is just a very high threshold of sharing those kind of things with a stranger. And we really differentiate between different relationships. And I'm the kind of person here that doesn't really have that kind of experience with American work culture, but I can still totally relate because you can find this in other relationships in the US too, that like even in school, like with professors, for example, like that's the same thing. It would be a super professional relationship with your professor or teacher in Germany, and in the US, like I just knew so much about my professors' private personal lives, and they knew so much about my personal life, and I thought that was always a little strange.
Yeah. Even after they, like, I have some people who work for me and they are still in close contact with their professor, and they're like, hey, let me call Karen, and then she's going to follow up with this. And it's like, she was my professor at UC, and it's like, and she's like living there, and that's her husband, and I think her brother's doing that and that job. I was like, what? How do you know all this?
It's very common, but at least at UC, I know a couple professors that would invite students to their homes for various occasions. But what I was going to say was, you kind of brought it up with saying my professor Karen, right? So was it weird for you at first to be on a first name basis with a lot of people who you didn't necessarily know or who were prospective clients?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we call everybody with last name, especially I was like 18, 19, 20 when I did the sales job in Germany, and it was like last name only, even to my colleagues.
Well, and for those of you who don't know,
ask, was it so within the company too? It was more formal.
Yeah. So
did you guys Siez or did you do
Siezen?
Okay.
Like our company is very traditional.
Okay.
Especially in Lübeck and Hamburg, like it's an old Hamburg company, it's an old Lübeck company. We go by the tradition. So I was wearing a suit every day with tie, last names for everybody, and then you come here and the CEO comes out like, "Hey, Niklas, how's it going?" like wearing his T-shirt. I was like, "What? What is this?"
Well, I think for the listeners who don't speak German, I just wanted to explain Siezen versus Duzen, and I think that plays a large role. So in Germany, there are two registers of speaking with in German, there are two registers of speaking with someone that you just how do you say Gesprächspartner? Someone you're conversing with.
Yeah.
And there's a formal way and there's an informal way. And in the US, we only have you, and we refer oftentimes to people as just by their first name. Whereas in Germany, if you don't know someone and they're a little older than you, it's very, very common, I would say. Depending on the company, it depends. Because at my company, we have this little secretary who is old, and I duze her. I call her by the informal you. But
in the German part of your company.
In the German part of my company. Yeah. So it depends a lot, but I think that can build a certain barrier between you and your colleagues or you and a client.
Definitely. It's a big part of German culture in general, especially work culture.
So it would be weird to talk about too personal stuff while talking in the formal. If you were saying Sie, I mean, you can.
A little, there's really that language stuff is such a big topic because there's also these in-between things. There's like companies like Niklas' company where like everything's super traditional and the hierarchy is very, visible, and like everyone uses the formal address with each other, but then there is like the in-between where like people use each other's first name but still use the Z, so the formal address.
See, I haven't experienced
That's what my teacher did.
Oh, really? Yeah. Like even in school, that's a thing too. Like I don't know how it was for you, but for us in 10th grade, our teachers, I think, were they were forced to ask us if it's okay for them to call us by our first name and to use the informal address.
What did you say, Niklas? Were you okay with it, or did you?
I said I was okay with it.
You didn't demand to be called.
But we still had to call most of our teachers by the last name.
Okay.
So they said Z Niklas, and I said Z, I don't know, Herr Vollert.
Okay, that's interesting.
No, I never used the first name with any teacher in school.
We do that in the U.S. as far as like, we don't use first names often. Sometimes it depends on the teacher. Some teachers really like to have a close relationship with their students. But in sports, and also it was mostly with coaches at my high school, it would be very common to refer to someone as just like, I don't know, like I can't think of a good last name of a teacher, but like, oh, I don't know, König. That was my high school German teacher's last name. But like, you just refer to them by their last name. Like
Wait,
Gonzalez.
without Mrs. or
yeah,
Miss?
you just be like, oh, I got to stop by Gonzalez real quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds a little like disrespectful to me.
Yeah, but
would
it's
you
very
say to
sporty.
them or just like to you?
It depends. It
classmate?
really depends. I know students who would call their teachers by their last name, but not Mr. or Mrs. just like,
hey, Gonzalez.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, wow, interesting. Yeah, but that's definitely a big difference, especially in the work life.
What is the rule that you learned for Siezen and Duzen? For me, if somebody could be your parent, Sie. If he's the same age or younger, Du. And only the older person can offer the younger person the Du.
That's how I was taught.
That's what I learned.
You were taught that? I feel like...
I think it's
What
just
is
an
it called? Knigge? Or what's the name of it?
Knigge.
Yeah. What does Knigge say
Like,
to that?
okay, for me, maybe like my parents just didn't teach me that, but I would say like most Germans just have a feeling for it. Like, but I would agree with that what you just said.
Yeah, there's a rule of thumb.
I've gotten into some awkward situations with that where like I'll start with du and then they respond back with calling me like the formal. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable.
Well, this can either be like a subtle way of telling you that you should use the Z with them, or they just want to be respectful with you.
Exactly.
It could
but
be either.
In my case, it's another disadvantage of not having much of an accent.
Yeah.
It's like, because I can't use that excuse of like,
Yeah, because
oh,
people
I'm
don't
American.
realize
First
that
time
you're
had
not
you just
native.
start talking with an accent.
Ja. Entschuldigung, ich wusste nicht, dass ich das nicht machen kann.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't heard Josh speak fluent German, you can check out one of our YouTube videos on my channel called, what's it called? American Fluent in German, I think.
Something along those lines.
And you can hear him speak German there, and he really does sound like a native, so it's super confusing when you hear him speak German, and then he makes a mistake like that you wouldn't expect from a native German.
So, should we try to get back to the
Definitely.
topic of work?
Well, like the whole like personal life and professional relationship thing was super interesting to me.
Yeah, one more point to that is
Yeah.
then after like 2-3 months here, I said, hey, Niklas, you need to hire someone new. I think it was for supply chain. And they said, okay, they will come in for an interview. And here's the 70 pages of questions that you cannot ask them. I was like, I talk on a personal level to everybody, every customer I know, name, age, I don't know, where they're from, where they live and everything, but I'm not allowed any of these questions to the people that I actually hire.
Yeah.
So
but
they're
that's
super
like
strict.
because of discrimination, right?
So when you hire someone, and we just recently had it, they send you their resume, and they don't have to put the age on there, where they're from, and all this, and they also can leave out parts. So there was a guy who applied with us, and he had like 15 years of work experience in there, and he had the college he went to, but not the dates. So he showed up, and I was like, okay, 15 years of work experience, he should be in his mid-30s, maybe 40. He was like 60.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it didn't disqualify him for the job, because I was like, what?
I think that's always something that's really interesting for me too, kind of going through a German job search, is how different your resumes are. How oftentimes you have to give a picture of yourself. Like, that's weird.
No, usually you have
in
to
the
have a
US, you
picture.
don't have to give a picture of
You're
yourself.
like explicitly not supposed to, right? Yeah.
You also, like in job descriptions in German, it'll normally have MVD, männlich, weiblich, diverse. And you don't have that in the US either. So that's male, female, or diverse.
So it means that they don't care which gender you are.
Exactly.
So they're looking for either.
Yeah, you should hire just based on the facts that you see. So we have these 17 pages, I remembered exactly, of all the stuff that I'm not allowed to ask. And we just recently had another job interview, so over 2-3 years here, I know what to ask and what not to ask.
Yeah.
So the normal way is you say, hey, tell a bit about yourself. And the person knows it. Like, they tell where they're from, like, what age they are, maybe sometimes if they have kids.
90-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, and then they do the elevator pitch, so you know everything. So we did this first round interview with a candidate, we did a second round, and in the last interview we brought in our CEO from Germany because it was a big hire. And he comes on and we said, okay, he's an executive, he has 20 years of experience, he knows what he's doing. First thing he is, so, are you married? And our HR person, oh! So we got around it, the person was cool about it, but yeah.
I think most people tend to, that you can't ask this type of personal question.
But why would you even ask that in Germany, though?
He was like, it's important for him that he has a stable life situation. Okay. He was like, I'm hiring people, like he bullshit the whole way around it. He's like, I'm hiring people, not like fact sheets. And he was like, he wanted to know if he's married, where he's from, like if he has kids and all that stuff. I was like, no, do not ask him anything.
Because I would say the married question at least would even be a little bit too personal for me in Germany.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. I think it's very, I just went through a pretty crazy interview experience where this guy crossed all of the lines.
But in the US, though.
In the US.
Yeah.
But I think the married question isn't quite as out of bounds, I think, in my opinion, of, like, I wouldn't be thrown off by that. But you have to be careful about what you say. So that's a good point.
It's religion, is all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Race is important.
Yeah.
But not even asking where they're from. They could be 2 hours from here. Yeah. Like, we don't want to hire someone who's commuting 2 hours every day.
Yeah. Right.
But no, it was an experience, so very personal on one side, and then do not ask anything on the other side.
Well, I think that is really to the point of what we were saying about kind of the feature, just defining what personal is.
Yeah.
And in which contexts Americans are okay with sharing a lot of personal information, in which contexts they're very guarded about who they are and they protect their rights or whatever we would want to say about that.
Yeah, but that's really part of like this whole cultural literacy almost. So like figure out and learn when you can do what in which culture. And also, like, guys, if you can hear a bunch of rain in the background, the world is ending right now. It started thunderstorming while we were talking.
Wasn't forecasted, but we know how weather people are at that. Maybe we can jump around, because I think kind of bouncing off of that, kind of business culture, you kind of talked about how it's very personal, but like establishing a personal relationship with your customers in the US is very important. I was just thinking about how golf is like very closely related with business in the US, especially when it comes to sales. How does that compare to Germany? Because I don't have much experience as far as building relationships with customers in Germany.
In Germany, it's very formal. For example, you write way more emails in Germany than you're on the phone. Okay. Like, first thing I do here is call my customer. Yeah. And then rather than sending an email, I send them a text. It's a personal level. They have to be personal, attached to you. They have to make a decision in your favor. So you're trying to build this up.
But hold on, I have a quick question. To their personal phone number or
the work phone?
Okay.
So oftentimes people use their personal phones as their work
I have
phones.
one phone for everything.
Yeah. See, like, I only did an unpaid internship here, and I was supposed to use my personal email address, personal laptop, personal phone number, and everything. And I hated that because even for just internships, even for internships that weren't paid very well beforehand in Germany, I would always have my company email address, phone number, even like a company's laptop sometimes. So that was weird for me.
No, it's that. And then you have to learn about the customer. What do they like? What do they not like? As I said, sports is a big thing. So, I mean, luckily I'm a sports freak. So football, basketball, baseball, I was well known about all that before, but I had to learn way more, like which college is good, which conference is good, which bowl game is tonight, all the stuff I learned.
I know people who actively in the US who aren't interested in sports in real life, but they follow it just so they can be a part of work conversations or business conversations.
I was just going to ask, did you ever lie about your favorite team to connect with the customer?
I did not. So I'm not like fan of like an extreme fan of I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, for example, so everybody has something to laugh about. And like basketball and baseball, I just follow. I know what's going on. Yeah. But then the other thing is there's all the sport phrases, like I don't know, scoring in the paint, hitting it out of the ballpark, swinging for the fences.
Oh my gosh,
throwing a curveball.
Yeah, those they're all part of like your normal. As an American, your normal speech that you don't.
Yeah, like, hey, Niklas, you're really throwing me a curveball here. It's like, what? Can you speak?
Oh my gosh, terms? I haven't even thought about that.
I know that one. Okay.
You know, scoring in the paint?
No, I didn't know
it's
that
like
one.
A basketball term, like in front of basket is like painted instead of the normal court. So if you're in the paint, you should score. Like it basically means, hey, you're so close, you're in the paint, you better score.
Also, ich habe dir eine gute Vorlage gemacht.
Basically, like, oh, you're so close, hey, make the basket.
Okay.
What else did I have? Swinging for the fences.
Didn't know
like
that
baseball, trying to hit a home run.
Okay.
So
Do you know what a home run is?
Yeah.
it basically means like you always go all in. Like I go all in.
Yeah, you don't
Okay.
want to aim for something short or close by in golf. In golf. In baseball, you always want to aim for the fence so you can try to.
So
get
like
the home
Niklas
run.
is a person who's always aiming for the
Yes,
fences.
I'm always swinging
Okay.
for the fence.
swinging for the.
Oh,
fence,
swimming
yeah.
for the... Here we go. I'm learning stuff on this
There you
podcast.
go.
I like it.
So yeah, I had one customer who started off with all these things, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh God, what is going on here? But I learned about it. Like my coworker had helped me a lot. I listened to US TV shows, sports shows, sport podcasts, all this stuff, and you catch up on it. So my English was good before, but the whole phrases, that's the part that was missing for me.
Yeah.
So how is it in Germany then, compared to the U.S.? We're very sports centric. We're very, we're wary. That was a very
Wary?
German way of saying very. We're very conscious about personal lives and really connecting with the customers. In Germany, it's just formal, you would say, or
I'd say it's a lot more fact based. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is my offer. It's this price, this material. It's
Das
valid
ist
till this
bleiben.
point. And out sports, do we have any other sports besides soccer? No.
I mean,
no, I'd say there's a lot of
no,
sports,
not really.
but no, I don't think I've never seen anybody talk that much about personal. But I'm also the industry I'm in, the mineral
depends on
trading,
the
the steel industry, is very traditional.
Yeah.
So it's traditional in the US to talk about sports, to talk about
Yeah.
private life. It's traditional in the US, in Germany, don't talk about it.
Yeah,
If
I would say even that like if you're too personal, people will say that you're unprofessional and they will prefer not to work with you anymore. Like it'll throw them off more than it'll make them like
I'd
you.
say if you go more on like the startup or media,
Yeah,
like
exactly,
you,
which is like my field.
Yeah.
Yeah, where
everyone
everything's
everyone uses the informal speech oftentimes, unless you're maybe talking.
yeah.
with
So like if I think
the
about
owner or
all of
something.
my media jobs that I've done before, I think there was only one boss who we had to use the formal address with, but everyone else, even like the really rich people who like founded these huge radio stations, we would like not even go by their first name but go by their nickname even. Yeah, and it would be super informal, and like people would do the stuff where they like talk about personal stuff and soccer and
I think
hobbies.
I think it really does depend on the industry.
Yeah.
I know from my experiences in Germany as well. I mean, I don't know how it is in the minerals area or branch, but as far as like a lot of technical or automation is concerned, we have a lot of suppliers who will stop by our office and they'll invite the sales group out to lunch. And I mean, it's still very formal in the sense of we still use the formal Z. We still are mostly talking about work-related subjects, as opposed to the U.S. where you wouldn't even talk about work. You would talk about your kids or your life outside of work.
I would say dinner is very common in Germany. You go
Okay.
out for dinner with the customer, you take them out for lunch or whatever. But here in the US, you go out for golf.
Yeah.
You spend 4 hours on the golf course and there's not one single minute spent on business.
Yeah.
So you can't be in American business without playing golf.
You can, but it's
hard.
It's very common in the U.S. to have like company golf outings or just golf is very important, especially in sales. I think it's a very salesy thing to.
I mean,
be
it's such
into
a
golf
cliche.
or-
I just didn't know.
But
it
it's
was
very
really-
true. It's very true.
Yes.
So, quick question, because like I don't really have all of that experience, especially in the like sales area.
Yeah.
Is it more like a male, like
Very
a
much
man
so.
thing?
I would say it's a very male-dominated industry. I think I just know from my experiences. Oftentimes, there have been discussions in rooms I've been in about how it would be advantageous to have a female making cold calls to customers because the customers would be interested in talking to a woman more than they would be interested to talk
I heard that.
in talking to a man.
Like people say like, hey Niklas, when you hire the next salesperson, how about a woman between 30 and 40?
Yeah.
It would go really well with our customers. Like, yeah, no, we cannot do this.
Yeah.
So like on those golf course meetings, like in those golf course meetings or outings, there's usually not a woman there. In my
Very few.
That's
Like
at least
1
how
to
it
10
is.
ratio maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know in my group, for example, at work, in the project management kind of quotation engineering work that I do, I think there are about 12 of us in the group, and only one of them is a woman. And she started as an assistant,
Okay.
and
of
she
course.
worked her way into the
Well, at least she did.
Yeah, exactly. But it's definitely in technical sales or mineral sales or
In
import
sales a
export.
lot, but a lot of my customers, a lot of people in purchasing are women.
Yeah, I was going to say finances, at least in my company where I work, it's almost all women. Almost all of the finance people, our CFO is a woman, our head of the commercial group is a woman, all of the people who work under her are women besides maybe 1 or 2 people. So I would say in HR and in finance, it's much more common to see women than men.
Right.
It's a sales job, which is really...
Yeah. It's kind of the alpha male out hunting.
Yeah,
on
which
the
is,
roads.
but also that's the same in both countries, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I would agree
I
with
was
that.
just wondering about the whole golf thing. Like, if you come to the US as a woman for work, do you have to know how to play golf? Maybe not as much, right? I would assume.
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of old men in my industry, and I know that they love when a woman knows what she's talking about with golf. So even if she
can
can't
see
play, if she's out there,
So
they
you
want
impress them.
they want her to be flirtatious. I mean, in my experience, they want a flirtatious woman who knows what she's talking about.
Okay.
Is kind of the role that women in that industry tend to have, which is not good in my opinion, but it's unfortunately the state of things.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, Josh, because like we've talked about Niklas's experience a lot and we're going to keep talking about it, but I was going to ask you what you would say, what is the biggest difference between the work life in Germany and the US?
I'm just thinking of, I work a lot with customers, not in the hunting aspect of going and trying to bring in new. Do you like the word hunting? Well, that's what you're doing. You're out on the hunt, trying to find new
I'm
clients.
trying to explain to my parents what I do, but I'll use
you're a
hunting
hunter.
going forward.
But I oftentimes have to work with the technical people and try to clarify a lot of those issues. And I've noticed that Germans are very structured in their approach to the German customer knows what they want, and they know line by line, very detailed technical instructions. There's a thing in German called a Lastenheft, which is like a technical specification is what I tend to translate it with. It's, at least in my industry, very uncommon to ever get any sort of Lastenheft from our customers. Oftentimes it's just an email, hey, I need a robot. And then I have to say, okay, what are you going to do with the robot?
Is it Roomba?
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that one of the cliches that tends to be true is that the U.S. is still very much wild, wild west in the way that we do business. It's very, you got to be quick. You have to respond very quickly with intelligent answers and move very fast. As opposed to Germany, where there's a lot more preparation and a lot more value is placed on technical specifications and making sure everything is accurate and trying to eliminate as much communication pretty much as possible that I can just give you a request and you know exactly what you have to do.
Because we want to be efficient. That's German efficiency right
and
there.
I think that translates also into just how business is done internally within a company as well. I work for a German company, but we have an American branch and we're a significant size of the overall worldwide company. And there's definitely clashes between the way that the U.S. operates and the way that Germany operates. Here in the U.S., we want to make changes fast to try to improve our processes. I think it's very common for the American mentality to be, let's try something, and if it doesn't work, we'll adjust.
Yeah, I was going to say trial and error
Exactly.
is a lot
Whereas
more
the Germans are very much, we're going to wait 2 years. We're going to plan everything perfectly. That way, nothing happens. No surprises, no mistakes.
Yeah.
And I tend to be more the German way.
Yeah, that's so funny.
no.
because, like,
There's a surprise.
one of the big reasons why I like the American culture so much is exactly that, like, trial and error thing, that you don't have to be super cautious and plan everything ahead. Just, like, go and try it, why not? Like, that's always what I say, like, the big motto of the American culture seems to be, why not?
Yeah.
What do you have to lose,
Exactly.
pretty much? And
I value that as well.
I do value that. I can also see, though, that could be a little annoying as a German in the American work culture, because you probably feel like, well, this could be a lot more efficient. We could improve this process a lot, but Americans...
Let's have a meeting and talk about it.
Exactly.
Meetings are great.
But I mean, these general differences are really interesting. But I think maybe kind of getting into some of the specifics of what does a German work contract look like as opposed to American working conditions, if you will. There's some significant differences. And I think for a lot of the listeners who don't have a lot of experience in the other culture, it could be pretty interesting to know how things work. I think
and for you getting a German contract.
Exactly. So I think just the concept of a contract is a good starting place. Oftentimes in the U.S., unless you're in a higher position, you don't actually get a true contract. You have a work agreement. It's work at will. So that means that you can be fired at any time and you can quit at any time. In normal culture and what's, we'll say, kosher or accepted as from the cultural aspect is to give a 2 weeks notice, as opposed to Germany, where, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very common. You almost always have to have a work contract.
Yeah.
Correct.
And there's also something called a Kündigungsfrist, which is, I'm trying to think of the English equivalent of that, but
A quitting...
essentially you have to give your
Time
notice.
frame?
Yeah, you have to give your notice of quitting, and oftentimes In my opinion, from what my experience is, it's 3 months.
It's 3 months and it's both ways.
And
Yes.
it's related on how long you have been with the company. So if
Really?
you've been with the company for 20 years, it could be 9 months to a year.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
At least for
Maybe
our
I never
company.
knew anyone who had been with the company for that long because it's not very common in the field of media. But
So in the company I work for, a lot of people work there since they're trainee. So they worked at 25. We just had someone 35 years with the company.
Wow.
And we had someone leave after like 25 years, and they put in their notice and said, "Oh, when is your last day?" And it was like, I don't know, February. And he was like, "Yeah, beginning of November." I was like, "What?" Yeah, like 9 months, and then have some vacation piled up.
That's
And
crazy.
so they actually work there, like do whole projects, and everybody knows they are leaving.
yeah.
And also there's people who like say, "Hey, I quit," but they don't want them to work there anymore, so they can't steal any information or learn about their customers. So they just tell them, "Hey, sit at home, do nothing, but we
They still
can't
get paid."
release you before in 6 months or so." They literally sit at home for 6 months and get paid.
Yeah, I have one coworker who just recently gave his notice. 3 months he had to give, but he also just had a baby. So he just set up Elternzeit, which is parental leave, which is another topic. So he's essentially on parental leave for the rest of his contract, and then he'll just leave after the end of his parental leave.
But so that whole thing really makes the whole work life in the US a lot quicker and everything changes a lot faster.
Yeah.
Whereas in Germany, even just with the 3 months, which is still a long period of time pretty much, people can plan ahead a lot more.
And there's a
people
lot more
can-
job security.
Exactly. And like people know that if they're going to get fired now, they'll have 3 months to find something new, to maybe change their living arrangements or something like that. Whereas in the US, you can lose your job within 2 weeks and then suddenly you're from 40 hours a week of work to unemployed.
You've probably seen in the movies where they bring the box to your desk and say, time to get out, and you have to put all your stuff in the box and leave.
I mean, which can be good because you can find a job very quickly and
you can change
last
job
minute.
very quickly.
Exactly.
And you can get rid of bad employees. I have to say, in my experience, that's one thing that's really I appreciate about the American culture or work culture is that you have to do a good job.
You're right.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be out the door. As opposed to Germany, where it's very hard to get rid of bad employees, and you just kind of figure out how to live with them. In my opinion,
if you have a bad employee and maybe he's also in the union, like he will be there forever.
Yeah.
I mean, so for employees, it's great because there's a lot of security in the German work culture and work life, but especially for employers, it's probably a lot nicer in the US.
Yeah, so when we start, whoa.
There's some thunder for you guys.
Oh, wow. And this was almost at the exact same time as the lightning.
That means
So
it
it
was
must
very
be
close.
right here.
It's not raining anymore, though.
Is that a good thing?
I don't know. Maybe the tornado's coming.
No, but something that we always say if we say, "Hey, I want to hire someone new," and he has to say, "Hey, yeah, Niklas, do it." It's a limited risk.
Yeah.
If we don't like him after 4 weeks or her, 2 weeks max, then we still have to stuck with him.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's
I don't know, like good, bad.
just different.
It's different.
Yeah, there's pros and cons.
But also the economy is built on this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you say? The average American changes their job every 3 years.
I think I actually once got advice from a mentor that said if you're in the same job after 3 years, then you need to quit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't continue to progress.
Yeah, if you want
as
to
a
go up the
career,
ranks, you should change every 3 years. That's what I heard also.
Yeah, which is the same in Germany for some fields, but like not the field that you're in, Niklas, as we talked about.
No, I'm with my company now for 6 years.
Yeah,
And like,
and that's a
I
good
mean,
thing.
I had great opportunities. I went from
Yeah.
trainee to like working there for 6 months to CEO, which is not the normal way. But a lot of my colleagues, hey, they know, okay, if I work another 5 years, I will be a business unit manager. And
Exactly.
another 5 years, I get my promotion. They have a clear structure of what
Yeah.
they're going to be.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And like you said, it's just different culture. We don't really have a saying for it, but anderes Land, andere Sitten.
Yeah.
Different country, different customs.
Customs, yeah, I was going to say habits, but customs is better.
So maybe,
But also, sorry, I was just
yeah.
going to add just one more thing because like the whole switching jobs thing that's so common in the US also goes along with Americans moving a lot.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a lot more common than in Germany. And
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
often connected to the parents switching jobs and like moving across the country for their jobs.
Our headquarters in Munich is now changing from one side of the city to the other side of the city. And it's a big deal because everyone has their homes close to the headquarters. Like they've planned their entire life about being able to ride their bike to work. And like now they're going to have to travel all the way through Munich to the complete other
Through
side.
traffic.
So a lot of people will probably quit
Do you
for
not
that
have a
reason.
union?
We do.
Betriebsrat?
Yeah, we have Betriebsrat.
And they didn't oppose it?
I'm sure they did, but in the end,
I don't know. Like,
I mean,
I feel
we're part of the IG Metall. Like,
also even like a strong union.
oh yeah. So I mean,
That's crazy.
in the end, it's going to be really nice because it's going to be an amazing headquarters where everything is under one roof, and it's going to work really well for the company. But yeah, I'm sure it was
That's a big thing.
I'm sure it was a very long process of ironing out the details and getting buy-in, and also having to make a lot of compromises for the union.
Yeah, but it's crazy that moving from one end of the city to the other end of the city within one
Yeah, you're still in the same city.
is still a big deal. Yeah. And in the US, people move from the East Coast to the West Coast through 3 different time zones,
Yeah.
and it's normal here.
But I don't know what your experience is like. When I went to school, like my classmates, there was never a person that left because their parents switched jobs or moved somewhere else. Maybe one or two.
Well, I went to school in Munich, in the city, so yeah, we had a lot of
Okay,
people
I went
who-
to school in Bad Oldesloe, so
Yeah.
people are born there and they die there.
Except for you.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
made
guess
out.
maybe you're going back and then you're gonna die there, so. But in between, you left.
So we kind of talk now about like business culture, kind of your relationships boss-employee. I think we didn't touch on that too much, but I know in your case at least, you're friends with a lot of your direct reports.
Yeah, so we are a very young team. I'd
Yeah.
say like 25, 26, most of them. I got to know them through work. It's also like I moved here. I didn't know anybody. We had Stefano. He was 25. He was 22 at that point. I was 22. So we became friends. We went out on the weekend. And a lot of the people that we hire are fresh from college. We want someone who has some character, who's a good person, who we can train. So we become friends. I mean, you went out with them.
Yeah.
I think we went to Nashville all together, or to Smoky Mountains.
Gatlinburg, yeah.
Yeah, to Gatlinburg. So it's
No, we're really revealing our entire private life.
isn't that what it's
But
about?
We still don't know our last names.
Yeah.
No, but I mean the relationship is really really close, and
Yeah.
I mean even for our sister company, it's also in Cincinnati. They have 300 employees, and they go on golf outings with the boss. They go golfing with him. I don't know. They see him on the weekends. They go to their houses, have barbecues.
Yeah.
They, I don't know. He's like, hey, I'm brewing beer at my house. Do you want some? Like my boss in Germany would never ask me that.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. I mean, here in the U.S., I have a very close relationship with my boss. He invited us. He's Mexican. He loves to have everyone over. He loves to cook, and he makes us these great feasts. And he has this tequila collection that he loves to share with us. And it's a very close relationship. In Germany, for me, I had a very close relationship with my coworkers, and even a couple levels up. But the higher you go, the more distance there is. But even then, we didn't hang out much outside of work. I played tennis once with a couple of them. But in general, we would eat lunch together, which is great. But outside of work, and maybe it had to do with the location of where I was working, but people didn't really hang out much outside of work.
Yeah, well, again, I have to say that like in other fields, that's very different. So in the field of media and like public relations, it's just in general like a lot more informal, a lot younger. So like I was friends with not with all of my coworkers, but I had friends at every job that I did.
So you would refer to them as your friends, not your work. Like they would be ein Freund von mir.
They would
nicht
all, I mean,
unbedingt
like, I
so
wouldn't
ein-
be super close with
Kollege.
every single one of them, of course. But, like, we would all hang out together, and then with some of them, you would get a little closer. And I always had my work friends, yeah. So, like, I would like, invite them to my birthday, so they were my friend, and then I would say I know them through the job.
And that's how I would say it often is in my office, too, with my coworkers. We even all went to Oktoberfest together.
Yeah.
But I would say it's a generational change in Germany. Like I'm friends with the people who are my age in our company. And like media is a lot of young people, startup is a lot of young people.
And,
So
but even the older people in media, I think, just like are a little bit more like younger at heart.
but they adapt the US lifestyle because
Yeah.
media is so US related.
Exactly, yeah, totally.
Like
It's
they
very
want
true.
to be like that, and like
Yeah.
happy hours or after work beer
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Like that's what we're trying to do in Germany.
Is that your translation for Feierabendbier?
Feierabendbier, after work
After
beer.
work beer. I've never
What do
been
we
able to
call it?
I don't know. We don't, I mean, happy hour. Go out for happy
Happy
hour,
hour.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite German words is
Feierabendbier.
Feierabend. Oh, well, Feierabendbier too.
Yeah, well,
Party
for
evening
a
beer.
German,
Party evening beer.
that's a little detour, but for a German, hearing the word happy hour, like if there's any German listeners listening right now, we will assume that that's a deal at a restaurant or a bar.
Well, which is kind of what it is in the U.S. too, but oftentimes it was a deal to get business people to come and network.
Right, but like now I feel like people don't use it. Like if you go to happy hour with your colleagues, you're not always going to an actual happy hour. Does that make sense?
Oh.
At least like
Here in the
that's-
US, you're saying?
That's my experience at least.
No, I would say if you say let's go out for happy hour.
Oh, you can just go to a bar.
Yeah, but most bars have a happy hour special.
Okay, true,
Yeah.
true.
But you would call it like, hey, let's do a happy hour together. It doesn't mean like, let's get a discount somewhere.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're
That's
not
what
going-
I was trying
Yeah,
to say.
you're not going for the discount.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's-
that's true though. Yeah, most do. That's true. I didn't
Yeah.
think about that.
You got to get there soon so you can get that happy hour discount though.
Yeah, but no, like in Germany, like if you say we're going to the bar for the happy hour, then you're actually going. You're gonna check the time and you're gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be over in 15 minutes. We should like order 3 more cocktails.
No, that's a good point for sure. Maybe we should talk about kind of some of the other things that go into a German versus American work contract. In the U.S., we have a concept of PTO, which is paid time off, which is a set number of days that you receive for both vacation and sick days. That's how my company handles things.
Oh, for you, it includes sick days?
Yeah, so in my case, I'm very lucky. I work for a German company in the U.S., so when I started, I got 18 18 PTO days, which is a lot for Americans. I think most people get about 10.
So can you split them however you want?
So
we have 5 PTO days
Yeah.
and 10 vacation days.
I know a lot of companies do it that way as well.
And the way I learned is like PTO is on short notice, vacation you have to plan.
See, my company is just 18 days.
Take them.
Plan it as you know that you're probably going to get sick, so save a couple days for that, and the rest you can do whatever you want with.
And then I've heard the term sick days a lot, which
Sick days exist too. Like I
Yeah.
said, it really depends on the company, where you'll get a certain number of vacation days and a certain number of sick days. And then if at the end of the year you aren't sick and you want a couple more days off, you can call in sick and take one of the sick days, which isn't really.
But you have what, like 5 sick days?
Yeah, not many.
And that's crazy. And
Yeah.
it really like was big for me when the whole Corona thing started, and I had a meeting with our sister company, and they have a lot of production people, and they said, okay, what in the case someone has Corona? They said, okay, first they have to take their PTO days, so they have 5 PTO
I mean,
days.
short-term disability probably.
That, or they cannot come to work, they're not getting paid, but they're not getting points. So we have a point system. If you get a certain amount of points, you get fired.
Yeah.
But all they did for them, for being nice, is like, hey, you're not getting fired. You're not getting paid, but you're not getting fired.
Yeah, which is crazy. In Germany, it's so
I was
different.
going to say, do one of you guys want to explain how the German system works then,
I
generally?
mean, I can start, and then we can probably all join.
We talked
join
about at the
in.
beginning, like I broke my foot. I was out for 3 months.
In Germany,
In
yeah.
Germany,
So like
yes.
in Germany, let's start with the sick
Vacation
sick
days.
topic.
Or, yeah,
no,
sure.
like yeah, with being sick, like that does not have anything to do with your vacation days. If you're sick, and you can be sick for pretty much as long as you are sick.
Yeah.
If you're like sick for like over 6 months or like long term, your company will figure something out with you, and you might lose your job eventually. But like if you have an injury for 3 months, or if you have Corona, if you have COVID, then you're fine. You don't have to worry about your job because you have a valid reason not to be at work, and you're still gonna get paid.
And the government steps in and will pay the company for your
So the
sick time
first
off.
6 weeks you get normal pay, and after 6 weeks it's down to 60%, and I think the 60% are coming from the government.
Okay, yeah.
So, but it's still like, hey, you're sitting at home doing nothing else. Literally sitting at home doing
And you're
nothing.
still-
So how bad was the break on your foot? Because when I did an internship in Germany, I had a German work contract. Therefore, I was able to. They say you get written sick. Essentially, you get a doctor's note.
Yeah.
Dr. Summer.
Yeah, and if you find a good doctor, and like in my case, I had a broken foot. I had a desk job, and he asked how long I wanted to be out for.
That's what we call Dr. Summer or Dr. Holiday.
Oh, that's funny.
Because
I've
you
heard
go
that.
like, hey, I'm not feeling good. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And then you have vacation for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so they just write you.
So
a
I got
notice.
3 weeks off, and I went and enjoyed Germany during my 3 weeks off, which
So
I technically wasn't supposed
My
to do.
foot was
but-
broken. Like I had to get an operation. I couldn't
really?
walk. Like I probably didn't walk for like 2.5 months.
Oh, wow.
Maybe a bit longer. But as soon as I was able to walk, I was going back in. But
But could you like walk with
I
crutches?
was walking on crunches, but
Okay.
I couldn't drive. That was
Okay.
the main thing. So I couldn't go to my work, and I said, hey, just work from home.
Yeah.
And I was still a trainee. I think it was the end of my training. I didn't have a work laptop or work phone, so I literally didn't answer an email for 3 months.
That's insane.
Yeah. So like if you get sick as a German employee, you don't have to worry really. I mean you're sick, so that sucks, but you in the beginning even like if you just wake up and you're feeling sick, you can just call in sick, and that's not going to do anything, and then after the 3rd day you usually have to have a doctor's notice.
Yeah.
But you can be sick for 3 days without anything happening.
And none of that affects your vacation.
no, exactly.
Which, if my research was correct, by law in Germany, you get 26 vacation days.
I think I looked it up earlier and it said 24.
Okay.
I think it's 24.
Yeah.
And then, but really common is 30.
Yeah, that's, for example, that's what I was
Yeah.
offered in my German work contract. But
Yeah, so that's a huge difference from like 10 vacation
just think about
days,
it, Americans.
which is pretty common.
30. What would you do with 30 vacation
That's
days? That's a
6
month.
weeks. Wait.
Well, no, yeah.
It's a month and a half.
Yeah, it's a
that's
month and a
6
half.
full weeks
Yeah, of work time, yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
Like, that was my question to my boss in Germany is, what do you do with all of this time?
Travel. Germans travel a lot. That's why
Yeah.
we're known for, like, wherever you go to any tourist destination in Europe, there's going to be German tourists.
Yeah, that's
in the
true.
US,
That's
there's
very
going to be
true.
German tourists. In Asia, there's going to be German tourists. We're everywhere because we have a lot of time and also money, fortunately, to travel.
yeah. Let's say.
Yeah.
And we also have this like culture that we believe that it's important to take time off and it's
Yeah.
important to take breaks and relax and enjoy your life because otherwise you're just going to burn out and you're not going to be productive.
Exactly, and that brings up 3 things I wanted to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, which just came to mind while you were talking, is einen ausstempeln, Weihnachtsgeld, and Urlaubsgeld.
Okay.
So einen ausstempeln is clocking in and out, which I think is very common in a lot of production facilities or more technical areas or branches, if you will. I don't know, what would you say, industries in Germany, where you have to clock in and out, even if you're a salary employee, just to track your time, because they don't want you to work, or you're not allowed to work more, because you have to get paid on the overtime. Whereas here in the US, with my work agreement, it says this is an overtime exempt position. Sometimes you will have to work more than 40 hours, but the standard work week is 40
Which,
hours.
like, in the field that I've always worked in Germany was always like that.
Yeah.
There was never a clocking in and out, and overtime was never paid.
Yeah.
So don't go into media, guys.
How was
But
it
you
here?
probably had in your work contract, you said you work 40 hours or you work 38. But,
Yeah, but you...
but they don't check on it.
no, they don't check on
But
it.
I think everybody has it in their contract.
Yeah, for sure.
And I bet in Germany you could probably get some sort of recourse if you said, I'm being overworked, this is not what I'm...
Depends on the field, like the industry, like in
Yeah, media
media.
is-
There's a lot of people who had to go in like on the weekend, on their vacation days. Like for example, I worked for a public relations agency, and one of their clients was Vapiano, which is a German restaurant chain, I think from Hamburg actually.
Oh, really?
And they had a really big crisis back in, I don't even know, 2016 or so. And the person who was their public relation person had to go in every day at 5 a.m. for like months, and that wasn't paid. That's just like, if you're not doing your job properly, you're gonna get fired in that field. So like, you either do that or you're gonna get fired.
But the
pretty
difference
much.
is in the US you have salary positions and you have hourly.
Yeah.
So everybody who's hourly needs to clock in and clock out.
Exactly.
Salary, you just work.
Yeah, which like in Germany, I would say most full-time positions are salaried positions, but then we do have like part-time positions that are also hourly.
But at least for us, all the salary positions have to clock in, clock out.
Interesting.
So if they
yeah.
work overtime, it says abbummeln. I don't know what it means. Have you ever heard of abbummeln? Überstunden abbummeln?
Abbummeln, abarbeiten.
Abarbeiten.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
so like, hey, you have too much overtime, just like go home early.
Yeah, you get comp time. So
Yeah.
they say go home.
Compensation.
Yeah, they say like, hey, go home, like you work too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's on the dot. I think for us it's like 40 hours because we are in sales. IG Metall, metal,
Yeah.
everybody who works with metal like 38.5 maybe.
Yeah. I
So,
mean,
and that's a short week for an American.
oh yeah, for sure. It's
You
a
get
big
yourself
difference.
lunchtime in between and all this stuff. So
Yeah. And then do you guys want to talk about what Christmas money and vacation money is? Because
I can't
that
really
is
say lot
that is a
about that.
foreign concept
Okay.
to
I've
Americans.
never gotten
at
it,
least
so.
in my experience.
So Christmas money is, in Germany you normally get salary every 15th of the month or the first of the month, but it's paid once a month, not like in the US weekly or bi-weekly. And so it's 12 salaries of the year. So a lot of company offer a 13th salary of the year, which is Christmas money. So in November, you get 2 times your salary, and it's basically, hey, use the second salary to buy Christmas presents. That I think what the original idea was.
Yeah.
But so, hey, when you do a work contract, say, hey, do I get a 13th salary? So yeah, you get Christmas money. So that's like, I get paid twice in November.
Yeah.
How great is that? And then vacation money is normally paid in May. It's like, depends on the company, you get $500, $1,000
They
or
give you extra
euros
money
in that
yeah,
case.
They give you extra money so you can enjoy
Yeah,
your
because
vacation
it's really
more.
traditional to take a 3-week vacation like June, July. I mean, some companies just shut down in a time frame because
Yeah.
everybody's on vacation.
Yeah, like especially like July and August, I would say are very slow months for a lot of industries because that's the main time for people to go on vacation.
So they give you this money, especially to book vacation.
Yeah.
As you said, like Germans have money and time to go everywhere because they pay us to go somewhere in the summer.
Because that brings us then into what I was going to say as far as salaries are concerned. Yeah. Germans have money, right? But in well, maybe not, I haven't looked up the statistics, but salaries in the US for jobs that require, I'll say, a technical degree tend to be higher in the US than they are in Germany.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Like salaries in the US are way higher than they are in Germany, especially if you come out of college or if you do your training in Germany or university, you come out, I don't know, someone with a bachelor or master degree makes 55,000 euros a year in Germany, and they have to have a good degree. Yeah. While you come here from UC, graduate with, I don't know, master of finance, whatever.
Oh yeah, if you have a master's in finance, you're going to be making...
Yeah, and you're a bachelor, and which is, to my experience, not comparable to a German education, and you want to start with like 75, 80. Yeah.
So, and with that, you're trying to say that it's lower than a German education?
It's lower than a German
I would say it's lower than a German education.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Yeah.
The bachelor, a master from the UC or whatever.
I would say, masters are about at the same level, depending on the field that you're in, but bachelors are usually...
It's not comparable.
Yeah. Like
Don't
you're
say that
more
because
educated.
I have to get my bachelor's recognized in Germany for my visa.
But Josh's bachelor is great.
Exactly.
my
bachelor, my degree is 1-to-1 with the German degree.
Yeah, it really also depends on the field that you're in.
Does.
But
no, you start with let's say you start with $80,000 a year, which for a German person would be insane to make that money. Yeah. But what you have to recognize is our school is free. Yeah. Rent is way less in Germany, especially at least where I'm from. Yeah. In Munich is different, I know that.
I think Munich, Hamburg, and I want to say Stuttgart recently became super expensive.
I also have to
but besides that, rents are pretty low in Germany.
But if you take into consideration the vacation days, and if you were to monetize the vacation days that you get in Germany, I think you would get a lot closer to what you actually would earn in the US.
I mean, time is worth something too.
That's a discussion I had with my boss when I moved here, and I said, hey, look at your salary, Niklas, but remember, you still have your 30 vacation days. Yeah. You basically get paid for 4 weeks that you don't work when everybody else has to work. So that's something, but when you start here and you're off college and you move to a different city, which you often do, and you study in Cincinnati, you move to New York, you study in New York, you move to Philadelphia. Yeah. You have to move, you normally buy a house, often you're engaged when you're out of college, a lot of people do that. And then you have all your student loans, so you easily can start with over $100,000 in debt.
Yeah. Oh, well into that.
Yes, but let's say, okay, so a German person starts, I don't know, after my training, the first, I made like 30,000 euros a year, which was a great salary for me. I didn't have a bachelor degree, so I just had my training. But comparing that to the US, it's like way different. But we have the money because our life is so secure. We talked about like 6 months until I can get fired. I have my health insurance. I don't have any debt. I have a apartment I can rent actually month to month instead of year to year, so I can spend the money on travel.
Yeah, I recently had to talk to one of my German colleagues about that, is because I was having to explain to them how I had to break my lease, or I will have to break my lease because I have a year-long lease, and she didn't understand that concept. She was like, what do you mean you have to pay like $2,000 to get out of your lease?
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And because I thought, and that's less than I would because I'm in my second year of the lease.
I thought you were just gonna like technically sublease to a new person.
that was the original plan, but that kind of has fallen through. So hopefully we could still possibly find a replacement for me. But if I can't, then I'll have to technically break my lease, and you have to give 30 days notice and then pay a lease breaking fee.
Yeah, because in the US, you usually sign the lease when you rent out an apartment or a house, you sign the lease for an entire year. Yes. So like you already commit to that year. Yeah. Also, like it's usually common to, like the lease is usually not longer than a year, so that also makes it kind of flexible. Mm-hmm. But in Germany, it's common that leases usually don't have any end date.
Okay.
Unless like there is some like befristete Mietverträge are also a thing, but they're just like if you're not lucky, you get like a limited lease. But that's not the norm. The norm is that it's unlimited, and that's also the reason why a lot of Germans don't move a lot, even within the same city. That like
I've had leases where the first year you have to agree to a full year, but then after that you can change from a year lease to a month to month, but then the rent goes up. Yeah. Oh, so you have to pay more for the flexibility.
So basically in Germany it's technically always month to month, but like quote unquote, because usually you also, just as with jobs, you have a 3-month Kündigungsfrist. How did we translate it earlier?
You have to give
a 3-month notice.
But with all of these points, like I know how much I pay for my lease. I know I can get out there. I'm not like surprised by any doctor bills because German health insurance, you have like really low deductibles.
Yeah.
So we can plan way better,
Yeah.
and that's how we can spend money on travel or I don't know, cars, whatever you want to.
And Germans just in general also like are just a little bit better at budgeting, just
That's also
because
true.
we learn it a little bit better apparently.
Yeah,
in our
I mean,
culture.
that's not necessarily... I'm interested, and maybe we'll talk about this off air too, because I just... As far as financial literacy in Germany and financial literacy in the U.S. and how you're taught, if it's just something that's taught in the family or you're just expected to figure out on your own, or do they teach it in schools? I think maybe that would be an interesting topic
I think
for
it's
one
a
of our future...
mentality thing, but yeah, let's talk about it sometime.
Yeah, because, I mean, I had a personal finance class in high school, but they never taught us how to fill out... No one ever teaches you how to fill out your taxes or any of that.
We don't learn that either.
Yeah.
No.
But it's easy in Germany. Only one tax return instead of like 3.
Yeah.
I was also surprised when I moved here. So federal, state,
and city. If
and
the city of Cincinnati forces you to
like 3 tax
fill out a
returns.
tax
What
return
is
as
this?
well.
Okay, let's go back to all the topics that we talked about. So we did talk about the vacation, money. Was there anything regarding all of that you wanted to talk about too?
I don't have anything else listed besides just maybe talking about the process of being able to move abroad.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about that. Like the whole like visa process and regulations, limitations. I already kind of a little bit talked about how it was for me. I don't even think I went into detail, but people can look it up on my YouTube channel. But for you, Niklas, it was way different because you are on a completely different visa.
Yeah, I'm on an
category.
E2 visa, which is basically an investment visa, which means my company, the company I work for, moves a certain amount of money through the US, and then we invest into the local infrastructure. So we build a warehouse. And based on that investment, we are allowed to bring management over to the US. And I was lucky enough that a colleague of mine moved here 3 years before I did. So he had the whole, first you need to register the company, that they actually qualify, and then you need to register yourself. So the company was still registered, so I didn't have to do that. And then it was like, here's the paperwork, Niklas, to register yourself. And I was like, what is this? And say, don't worry, you get a lawyer on your side. He's doing everything for you.
That's
But
nice.
From my parents or my brother or my girlfriend, they checked everything. They even wanted to know where my Facebook account is.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
wow.
it's
That's
optional,
intense.
but they said, hey, better put it in there.
So was this the lawyer who was helping you get
Yeah, the
prepare
lawyer went
everything
through
and wanted
everything.
all of that?
I had to
information?
get 3 recommendation letters. I had to show that I'm actually like a managing position here, and then like introduction letter. It was like a resume where I like praise myself how great I am.
Yeah, that's very
And
American.
then I took all this and I had to go to Frankfurt to the U.S. Embassy in Germany, and I had to do an interview, which was super strict. So I had to
You
go
had to go to the embassy?
Consulate.
Consulate,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Consulate. But for example, you're not allowed to bring your phone in there, but they also don't take your phone. So either you travel to Frankfurt without your phone, or you just leave it somewhere outside.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
just as a disclaimer, that's the case for all visas, even temporary visas. If you come to the U.S. as an exchange student, you always have to do these interviews, and it's
and
always
I
the
will have to
same.
do the same thing with the German
Yeah.
Did you go to Frankfurt?
consulate.
I got different visas. For my student visa, I always went to Munich. So I've had 4 different visas at this point. So I went to Frankfurt twice and to Munich twice, because there's also a consulate in Munich, but they only do the temporary ones, so the
There's one
non-immigrant
in Hamburg
ones.
as well, but
And the one in Frankfurt is the only place in Germany where you can do the immigrant visas, which for me was the green card, and for you the E2.
the E2 is not an immigration visa.
But
so
which category is it then?
it's an investor visa.
But there's like 2
I'm still
different.
considered a visitor.
Okay, so it's
a
a
non-
non-immigrant.
Yes.
And that's why he can't go to Germany right now, because he wouldn't be able to get
Yeah,
back.
I'm not a
Right.
resident. I'm still a
Okay,
visitor.
but they still didn't do it in Hamburg or
no,
Munich.
they say,
Okay.
hey, you have to go to Frankfurt.
This is a great example of how complicated the American immigration system is
It is.
compared to Germany.
It's also
So
very strict.
it's very strict. Compared to what I will have to do to be able to get a German visa, it's relatively simple. I mean, in my case, I just, like I said, because of the type of residency permit I'll need or I'm going to apply for, I have to get my degree recognized to show that I'm a, what do you say, Fachkraft, like a expert in my field, or that I have that I'm
education.
an education, and then also I just have to have a work contract. And then I just have to fill out like 1 2-page form and go to my interview with all of my documentation and say, here you go.
Is there anything about your company? Like they went through all our financial records.
I think since it's not an investor visa or anything like that, they won't have to go in depth. And what's interesting too is in the U.S. we talk about defending our market, our work market, or our labor force or labor market oftentimes. So I have that mentality, right, of foreigners are going to come in and steal jobs. Like that's what you hear a lot in the U.S. And I was getting some advice in Germany, and I called one of like the hotlines with one German government office, and I was asking about the process, and he said, yeah, the Arbeitsagentur will probably have to take a look at it. And I said, the Arbeitsagentur is like the labor agency in Germany. And I said, yeah, it makes sense. They'll probably are going to want to look to make sure that I'm not stealing a job from a German, that there's not a German that could potentially take this job. And he said, oh, no, we want to make sure that you're making enough money that the company isn't treating you poorly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have totally expected the same thing as you.
But he was like, no, I mean, they used to check for that, but what they're really checking for is to make sure that the working conditions for you are legal.
Oh.
I was like, this is awesome.
Nobody checked that for me.
No.
I mean, everything was great, but
Immigrating to the U.S. is really strict. Like, as you said, the interview for you was really strict.
Yeah.
For me, like, especially for the green card. Because, like, the temporary one, like, for the exchange student visa was not that strict. They just want to make sure that you have a reason to come back to Germany and not use the visa to then overstay your visa and stay illegally. But the green card one definitely was a little more strict. And, like, they basically, at the interview, but then also when you immigrate at the airport or, like, wherever you enter the country, they pretty much always treat you almost as a criminal, I would say, or like they're very suspicious.
It's more guilty until proven innocent rather than the other
so
way around.
when I come back from I went to vacation in Mexico, came back, I have to go through the visitor line.
Yeah.
And they don't say like welcome home or welcome back or something. They check everything. Why are you here? I was like, I live here. And like, what do you do?
You live here.
I was like, I'm currently staying in.
I know people have gotten yelled at for saying I live here, and they yell at them and say, you don't live here, you're visiting.
Oh yeah, they don't say like you live here. It's like, oh, you currently work here. Mm-hmm. And then they check that my the expiration date on my visa, and they don't stamp it any longer than that my passport is still valid. So it's a long process, and I need to plan another hour or two at every
I'm interested to see how that works for me when I go to Germany, because getting the visa is one thing, but then when you arrive, getting through customs with all of that, I'm not anticipating a lot of issues.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be very quick.
Yeah, but it just will be interesting to be able to compare my experiences going through as an American into Germany as opposed to hearing about the stories from a lot of my foreign friends coming to the U.S.
I've been in secondary inspection so many times.
Because you overstayed.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. But also, like, even without that, they probably would have done that at some point, because if you keep coming back on different visas as technically a temporary visitor, but you, like, still keep coming back, like, the next year and again, they're gonna, like, investigate you.
For you, if you come back to the U.S., how strict is it? Like, when you come back, do they ask you questions and everything?
Yeah, I mean, you have to fill out the customs form of, like, are you bringing anything illegal back to the U.S.? And then they ask what I did or where I was, and I say Germany, and they say what for, and I said work or pleasure or whatever it may be, and they said okay, welcome home, and they do say welcome home.
We just scan our passport.
Yeah, you don't even talk to anybody.
Yeah, going to Germany, you don't have to talk to anybody. I mean, there is this thing in the U.S. too, where like as a green card holder or a citizen, you can do the automatic thing too, right? I forget what it's called.
It is called global entry.
But you have to pay for it.
To pay for it, you have to go through this whole process. There's an interview.
Yeah. So it's still different. But like, as you said, Niklas, in Germany, when I arrive, I just scan my passport at the like little turnstile thingy or like automatic door thingy, and they just automatically check my face, and that's it. I'm in. Yeah, nobody greets me. Nobody. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's going to be a lot of criticism about this, because obviously, like, it's very obvious that it's a lot harder to enter the U.S. than it is entering Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, but US, like, I travel a lot for work. I've been to China, South America. I'd say US is one of the hardest. It's pretty similar to what I have to do if I go into China.
Really?
Yeah, like you have to scan, then you have the interview, they ask you questions, they check your passport. It's pretty similar. Like, okay, getting a visa in China is even more difficult than in the US, even just for work.
Really?
But I feel like the process is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, about your visa process, was there anything you haven't mentioned yet? So, like, you went to the interview.
It was expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. There's fees you have to pay.
I was gonna say. So how much was the application fee for your guys' visas?
I honestly don't remember.
It should be around 1,000 plus the lawyer cost.
Honestly, at this point.
Well, yeah, you have the lawyer cost.
At this point, for my 4 different visas that I've already obtained, I've probably paid like, I don't know, 2 or
flight
3,000.
tickets, Frankfurt. But to give you another idea, when we moved here, I moved here with my wife, and even though we're on a work visa, she's like on a visa related to mine. She had to get a work permit, which was $495 just to get the work permit, and we have to get it renewed every year and a half.
So every year and a half you have to pay that fee again?
No, now it's only 410.
Oh, so cheap, so cheap.
No, but yeah, every year and a half, or I think it's that time frame, we have to pay it again. It's literally just getting a new, looks like a ID.
So my degree, it's called the Gleichwertigkeitsbescheinigung. That costs like €200, but normally you wouldn't have to. They already have a database of degrees that are recognized, and you don't have to pay anything. You just say, "This is my degree." This, you can see it's been recognized. But with my degree, it's kind of a more niche degree, so it hasn't been recognized by any official German body yet. So they have to check that. That's why it costs €200.
Yeah.
But the visa itself or the interview, the fee for it is only €75.
Oh, wow, that's cheap. Well, in the US, it depends on the visa category, because I've paid different fees before, but it's definitely at least several hundreds, I would say. And also, like, what you usually have to do, which, like, in your case, I'm not sure if you had to do that, but you usually have to prove that you're not going to be unemployed after you enter the country. So you have to prove that you have a job opportunity lined up, or that you have a bunch of money.
So my visa especially says, hey, this is Niklas. He works for this company.
Yeah.
And if I lose my job, I have a month to leave the country.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my company has its name in my visa.
Okay.
Yeah. So for you, like, that was their guarantee that you're going to be employed because you were there with the company. You also have to do that for Germany, right? To prove that.
I have to. I mean, well, not necessarily.
Not
so
the financial
as
part?
as an American, there are kind of 3 different ways that the German government handles foreigners. You have the foreigners from the EU, then you have foreigners from the Schengen area, and then you have, you have foreigners from the EU/Schengen area. Then you have preferred foreigners, if you are. That's not what they call them, but
Is
foreigners.
that you?
That's me. So foreigners from countries that have special agreements with Germany. So I think Australia, Japan, the U.S. They all have special agreements with Germany, and then you have the third category of people who don't have agreements. But as an American, I can go to Germany for 90 days with no job opportunities or anything, and I can search for work while I'm there during those 90 days. And then if I get a job, then I just have to go to the German, I don't know, what is it called, the migration office, and apply for a residency permit there.
Okay.
So I could go there without a job. I don't have to prove that I have any money or anything.
So it's different.
But in my case, since I'm going to show up and want to work pretty much immediately, I have to prove that I have a work contract, and there are a couple different documents that I have to show then. But in general, it's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, one more thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to Niklas is your wife. Because you talk about your girlfriend and then suddenly she was your wife. So basically you guys got married for the visa, right?
I mean, it was a big love story, no, but...
Well, not only, of course, but like the reason why you got married so quickly.
Yeah, we looked at different options for her to come over here with me, but we said, hey, it's the easiest if we are married. So my 2017-18 was crazy. I came back from the US in end November, got the visa in December, got married in January, and moved in February.
And so, you got married super last minute, right?
Yeah, it was just my parents, her grandparents, her parents, and I think my brother.
Yeah.
So my friends are still very mad at me.
So how long were you guys together again before you guys decided to
7.5 years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, so like, for you
so
guys...
it was a committed relationship.
Exactly. But
It was not like I married a girlfriend of like 6 months.
No.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have married at that point, though, if it hadn't been for the visa.
No, you know, like in Germany, we get married at a later point.
Yeah.
So it's not like in the US you get married in college or right after that, but it just made sense at a point, and we were getting married anyway at one point, so we said, hey, let's do a small marriage or small wedding now, and then we still have promised a big one when we come back.
5 years later.
5 years later.
Yeah, we better be invited to this.
Yeah, I want to be there.
Notice he doesn't give us an invitation.
You invite yourself to so many things.
Well, I mean, Feli, do you have any other questions?
Well,
or Niklas,
did we
want
to cover taxes at all? Because we kind of talked about it last time, but it's a huge topic.
I mean, we've been talking for a while so far.
We have.
So
it's a bunch of complicated stuff. Well, let's just say that the taxation process is kind of complicated, but fortunately there is an agreement between Germany and the US so that you don't have to pay double taxes.
Yeah.
And for me, just to give an example, for the first 5 years that I'm here, I'm still in the German social system, so I pay in my retirement fund in Germany, I have my healthcare in Germany, and all the stuff. It's very simple.
So how do you have your healthcare in Germany? Still through the company?
It's a German healthcare provider, and they have a special U.S. insurance, and it's through the company. But it's not that I pay part of my salary. Like normally in Germany you pay 6.7% or so.
For healthcare it's 14.6.
But that's combined.
Yes. It's 7.3 as
everything is like basically 50-50 split. But no, my company is nice enough to just pay the health insurance for me and my wife here in the US, which is an awesome health insurance.
But also in Germany. Or
it's an international health insurance.
Okay, so like whenever you go home, you're still insured.
Yeah, I can go wherever in the world and I'm insured.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's a great health insurance, no deductibles and all this good stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I guess like we have covered a lot. One more thing that we also had on our list was the whole Ausbildungs topic, but I think we can cover that another time.
We'll cover that another time. And I was going to say, I don't think Niklas would have anything against coming back and answering some questions. So if you guys have questions for Niklas or for us as we move forward, please, as we've always said, we have a website where you can leave us comments. It's understandingtrainstation.com.
You can email us at understandingtrainstation@gmail.com. You can go to Instagram and DM us, comment. Also, Understanding Train Station, you can go to YouTube, or if you're watching, hi, and you can comment here. And since we've mainly now talked about the whole like work-related stuff, maybe you have any personal questions for Niklas or like culture related.
I was also going to say, I think he's finally representing the underrepresented Northern Germans that I know I've complained in your videos sometimes. So if you want us to talk maybe more about cultural differences between Northern and Southern Germany, I think that would be an interesting thing.
Yeah, let us know.
Niklas has a very different accent than Feli does, for example.
Yeah, in English, but also in German.
Oh yeah, there's some words where they make fun of me, so.
I do sometimes. But yeah, so feel free to comment and we'll gladly have Niklas back on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Niklas. We really appreciate you taking time to come talk to us.
Absolutely, always.
I also learned a lot today, guys.
Yeah, me too.
So I hope you enjoyed it too, to all of our listeners.
Yes, I did.
And you're like, yes, I did. Well, glad you did. And we'll
see you guys next week with another topic.
Well, I guess we won't see them, but they will see us.
They'll see us, they'll hear us, and hopefully we'll read your comments.
Yep.
But yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you guys again next week. Thanks for listening.
Tschüss.
Ciao.
Servus.
Tschüss.
Viert euch.
Viert euch.